The call came at 2:17 a.m., piercing through the silence of Mar-a-Lago's presidential suite. Donald Trump sat up in bed, his instincts immediately alert. After decades in business and politics, he knew that calls at this hour meant either opportunity or crisis. The voice on the other end made him sit up straighter. "Mr. President, this is Angelina Jolie. I need to meet with you immediately. It's about something I discovered at the UN that threatens everything we think we know about global humanitarian work." Trump's mind raced. Angelina Jolie, Oscar-winning actress turned UN Goodwill ambassador, wasn't someone who made middle-of-the-night calls to former presidents unless the situation was extraordinary. Her voice carried an urgency he'd never heard from her before. "I'm at UN headquarters in New York," she continued. "Security level Alpha Black. I can't discuss this over any communication channel. You need to see the evidence yourself." But Trump had no idea he was about to uncover the darkest secret in modern humanitarian history. The drive from Mar-a-Lago to his private airfield took 18 minutes. Trump sat in the back of his armored vehicle, his mind working through possibilities. Angelina Jolie had spent years working with refugees, investigating humanitarian crises, gaining access to information that most world leaders never saw. If she had discovered something that scared her enough to risk contacting him directly. His phone buzzed with an encrypted message: "Service elevator. Sub-basement 3. Come alone. Lives depend on absolute secrecy. A.J." The Gulfstream G650 cut through the pre-dawn darkness toward New York. Trump's minimal security team briefed only that this was a classified diplomatic consultation. But as they approached the city, Trump could see unusual activity around the UN building: vehicles that didn't belong to any nation's diplomatic corps, personnel moving with military precision despite their civilian appearance. And this is where everything changed. The UN building at 3 a.m. was supposed to be nearly empty, just security and essential personnel. But Trump's enhanced senses, sharpened by years of high-stakes negotiations, detected something wrong the moment he entered through the service entrance. Too many people for this hour, too much coordinated movement, too many conversations stopping abruptly as he passed. Angelina was waiting by the service elevator, dressed in dark, practical clothing that was completely unlike her usual public appearance. No makeup, no styled hair, no jewelry, she looked like someone who had been hiding in shadows for days. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What I'm about to show you is going to challenge everything you believe about international humanitarian organizations." The elevator descended past floors that didn't appear on any public UN building schematics. When the doors opened on Sub-basement 3, Trump found himself in a facility that looked more like a military command center than anything associated with diplomatic work. "How long has this been here?" Trump asked. "Officially? It doesn't exist," Angelina replied. "Unofficially? Since 1945. And what they've been doing down here makes every conspiracy theory you've ever heard look like children's bedtime stories. You haven't even seen the biggest surprise yet." The corridor they walked through was lined with offices and meeting rooms, all bearing classifications Trump had never seen before. Not CIA, not NSA, not any intelligence designation from any government he knew. The people working in these spaces moved with purpose and urgency, their faces carrying the weight of secrets that could reshape global understanding. "Humanitarian crises aren't random," Angelina said as they walked. "Wars, famines, refugee movements, disease outbreaks, most of them are engineered. Created by the same organizations that publicly exist to solve them." Trump felt his businessman's instincts flare. "You're talking about a protection racket. Create the problem, sell the solution." "I'm talking about something much bigger than that," Angelina replied, stopping at a door marked with symbols Trump didn't recognize. "I'm talking about a system for managing global population distribution, economic control, and political influence that uses human suffering as its primary tool." She placed her palm on a biometric scanner, and the door opened to reveal a room that made Trump's understanding of global politics suddenly feel inadequate. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The room was filled with interactive displays showing real-time data from humanitarian crises around the world. But instead of showing relief efforts or aid distribution, the screens displayed economic analyses, population flow models, and political impact assessments that treated human suffering like market variables. This is the Global Population Management Center, Angelina explained, her voice thick with disgust and determination. Every major humanitarian crisis of the past 70 years has been planned, executed, and managed from this room. Trump studied the displays with growing horror. Wars that had claimed millions of lives, famines that had destroyed entire regions, refugee movements that had destabilized nations, all of them reduced to data points and strategic plans designed to achieve specific political and economic outcomes. Who's behind this? Trump demanded. Angelina activated another display showing organizational charts that connected humanitarian organizations, intelligence agencies, multinational corporations, and governmental departments across dozens of countries. It's not one organization, she explained. It's a network. They call themselves the Stewardship Council. The idea is that regular people can't be trusted to manage global resources or population distribution efficiently. So they create crises that force people to move, to accept solutions, to surrender sovereignty in exchange for survival. Wait, don't miss this detail. The evidence Angelina showed him was overwhelming in its scope and terrifying in its implications. Documents showing how refugee crises were artificially created to destabilize specific regions, how food aid was used to create dependency rather than self-sufficiency, how medical interventions were designed to require permanent international oversight rather than building local capacity. Every time you see international aid organizations responding to a crisis, Angelina continued, you're seeing the final phase of a plan that started years earlier with economic manipulation, political interference, and sometimes direct military action designed to create the conditions that would require outside intervention. Trump felt his characteristic combativeness surge, but it was mixed with something he rarely experienced, genuine shock at the scope of systematic evil he was witnessing. The Syrian refugee crisis, he asked. Planned in 2008. Economic pressure, political destabilization, then military conflict designed to create exactly the population displacement patterns they needed to achieve specific demographic goals in Europe. The famine in Yemen? Engineered through aid dependency programs that deliberately weaken local food production, then triggered by controlled economic sanctions that made international aid the only survival option. And this is where everything changed forever. Angelina activated a display that showed Trump something that made his blood run cold. Detailed plans for future crises, already in various stages of implementation. Economic pressure campaigns, political interference operations, and infrastructure sabotage programs designed to create the next wave of humanitarian disasters. They're not just responding to crises, Trump realized. They're farming them. Growing humans suffering like crops. And harvesting political control, economic influence, and social compliance, Angelina confirmed. Every crisis creates opportunities to expand international oversight, reduce national sovereignty, and increase dependency on the same systems that created the problems in the first place. But the most chilling revelation was yet to come. The display showed that the United States wasn't just a participant in this system, it was being targeted for the next major humanitarian intervention. They're planning something for America, Angelina said quietly. An economic collapse designed to look natural, followed by social unrest, followed by international intervention to restore stability and provide humanitarian assistance. The scope of the threat became clear. Trump studied the documents with the eye of someone who had spent decades analyzing business deals and political strategies. The plan was sophisticated, long-term, and designed to be virtually undetectable until it was too late to prevent. When, he asked. Phase 1 began 6 months ago, Angelina replied. Economic pressure through coordinated policy changes, infrastructure vulnerabilities being mapped and tested, social divisions being amplified through information warfare. The timeline shows complete implementation within 18 months. Trump felt the weight of national survival settling on his shoulders. How did you discover this? I was invited to join them, Angelina admitted. 3 months ago, I was approached by someone claiming to represent an advanced humanitarian planning committee. They wanted me to become the public face of the next major aid initiative. But what she discovered about her own recruitment was completely insane. The meeting was supposed to be about developing more effective refugee assistance programs, Angelina continued.
But when I arrived, they showed me the real agenda. They wanted me to help sell the American intervention to the global public when the time came.
She activated another display showing psychological profiles and media strategy documents that detailed how celebrity humanitarian advocates could be used to legitimize interventions that were actually designed to reduce national independence rather than provide genuine assistance.
They've been studying me for years, Angelina revealed.
Every humanitarian mission, every public statement, every relationship I've had, all of it analyzed to determine how I could be most effectively used to promote their agenda. Trump recognized the manipulation model immediately.
They weren't recruiting you to help people. They were recruiting you to help them look like they were helping people. Exactly. And when I realized what they were really asking me to do, I started investigating on my own. That's when I found this place.
But then she revealed the evidence that changed everything.
Donald, there's something else.
Something about why they're so focused on neutralizing you specifically, and why they've been working so hard to discredit your presidency.
Trump's blood chilled. What do you mean?
Angelina activated a display showing intelligence analyses that detailed every aspect of Trump's political career, business dealings, and policy positions. But these weren't ordinary opposition research files, they were strategic assessments of how his approach to national sovereignty threatened the managed crisis system. Your America First policies weren't just political slogans to them, Angelina explained. They were direct threats to a system that depends on American resources and infrastructure being available for international management. The documents showed how Trump's emphasis on border security, economic independence, and reduced international commitments had disrupted decades of careful planning designed to make America more dependent on international systems. They needed you gone not because of your policies themselves, Angelina continued, but because you represented a model of leadership that other countries might copy. If major nations started prioritizing their own people over international obligations, the entire managed crisis system would collapse. And that's when Trump realized the full scope of what they were fighting.
This wasn't just about humanitarian fraud or political manipulation.
It was about a fundamental philosophy that treated national sovereignty and individual self-determination as obstacles to efficient global management by enlightened elites. They believe regular people are too stupid to govern themselves effectively, Trump said, understanding flooding through him.
Worse than that, Angelina replied.
They believe regular people are too destructive to be allowed real independence. In their minds, creating controlled crises and managed solutions is actually merciful compared to letting human nature run its course.
The paternalistic arrogance of it was staggering, a global network convinced that their manipulation and control was actually humanitarian service.
But then the alarms started blaring.
Emergency lighting activated throughout the facility, bathing everything in pulsing red.
Through the secure communication system, voices began reporting security breaches, unauthorized access, and multiple intrusions at entrance points.
They know we're here, Angelina said grimly.
I was hoping we'd have more time to gather evidence, but they must have been monitoring my access. Trump's security team, which had been maintaining perimeter watch, immediately activated emergency protocols. But as they prepared to evacuate, both Trump and Angelina realized they were facing something more sophisticated than ordinary security response.
The people trying to stop them weren't UN security or American law enforcement.
Through the facility's security monitors, they could see figures moving through the corridors with military precision, wearing uniforms that didn't belong to any nation's forces. Private contractors, operating under authority that transcended national boundaries. They have their own army, Angelina observed, her voice carrying grim recognition.
Personnel loyal to the Stewardship Council rather than any government.
Trump felt his characteristic defiance surge. Then we better make sure the evidence gets out before they can silence us.
What happened next would make international headlines for all the wrong reasons. Instead of trying to escape with the physical evidence, Trump and Angelina made a decision that their pursuers hadn't anticipated.
They began broadcasting directly from the facility, using Trump's mastery of media communication and Angelina's global humanitarian platform to stream live evidence of the global crisis management system. My fellow Americans, Trump announced to the world while standing in front of displays showing planned humanitarian crises, What you're seeing here is proof that many of the world's greatest tragedies weren't natural disasters, they were deliberately created by the same organizations that claim to be solving them. Angelina added her voice, speaking to the global humanitarian community that had trusted her for years. I've seen refugee camps, war zones, and disaster areas around the world. But what I've discovered here shows that much of the suffering I've witnessed was preventable because it was intentionally created. The global response was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, the footage was being shared across every social media platform, translated into dozens of languages, and analyzed by journalists and investigators around the world. The image of Trump and Angelina standing together in a secret UN facility, exposing evidence of systematic humanitarian manipulation, created a media earthquake that no amount of damage control could contain. But more importantly, other humanitarian workers and government officials began speaking out, sharing their own experiences with suspicious aid operations, questionable crisis responses, and pressure campaigns designed to expand international oversight rather than solve actual problems. And that's when the Stewardship Council made their first critical error. Faced with unprecedented exposure, the network attempted to control the narrative through their usual methods: coordinated media campaigns dismissing the revelations as conspiracy theories, character assassination attempts against Trump and Angelina, and legal challenges designed to distract from the evidence. But the response was so rapid, so coordinated, and so obviously scripted that it actually confirmed everything they had revealed. The very methods used to discredit them became proof of the managed information systems they were exposing. Look at this, Trump announced during their live broadcast as reports began flooding in. 6 hours ago, nobody knew about this network. Now watch how every major news outlet responds with almost identical talking points, how humanitarian organizations issue nearly identical statements, how legal challenges appear simultaneously in multiple countries. The coordinated response became a real-time demonstration of the managed crisis system they had described. But the Stewardship Council had one final surprise waiting. As Trump and Angelina prepared to release more evidence, they received a message that made them both pause. It came through the facility's own communication system, meaning their pursuers had gained control of the building's infrastructure. Mr. President, Ms. Jolie, the message read, your passion for transparency is admirable but misguided. The crises you've exposed as managed prevented far worse natural disasters. Without intelligent oversight, human civilization would have collapsed decades ago. We offer you positions within the system, where your talents could contribute to genuinely beneficial global management. The offer was sophisticated psychological manipulation, acknowledging their strength while reframing their resistance as naivety, suggesting that joining the system was more humanitarian than fighting it. Trump's response was immediate and characteristic. Tell them we'll take their offer, Trump announced loud enough for the surveillance systems to hear. Right after they explain it to 8 billion people who deserve to know who's been making decisions about their lives without their consent. Angelina nodded beside him. The choice shouldn't be between managed suffering and natural disaster. It should be between honest assistance and manipulated dependency, between helping people build better lives and creating problems that require permanent oversight. And that's when they realized the real fight was just beginning. The Stewardship Council's offer revealed something crucial: they genuinely believed their system was beneficial, that intelligent management of global crises was superior to allowing natural human development and self-determination. The battle wasn't just about exposing corruption, it was about fundamentally different philosophies of human dignity, capability, and the right to self-governance. 6 months later, Trump stood before a joint session of Congress with Angelina Jolie beside him as a special witness. The legislation they were supporting would create international transparency requirements for humanitarian operations, establish oversight mechanisms for international aid organizations, and create legal frameworks for prosecuting the artificial creation of humanitarian crises. We learned something important, Trump told the assembled lawmakers and the global audience watching. The greatest threat to human welfare isn't natural disaster or human conflict. It's the arrogance of those who believe they know better than people do about their own lives. Angelina nodded beside him. Real humanitarian work means helping people build the capacity to solve their own problems, not creating problems that require permanent outside management. When we treat people as capable of self-determination rather than victims requiring perpetual assistance, amazing things happen. But in secure facilities around the world, the Stewardship Council was already adapting. While Trump and Angelina had created global awareness of managed humanitarian crises and established new oversight mechanisms, the fundamental network that had operated for decades wasn't easily dismantled. The next phase would be more subtle, more sophisticated, and more difficult to detect than anything they had exposed before. The question was, could transparency and human dignity survive in a world where even genuine humanitarian work could be co-opted and manipulated? The answer would determine not just the future of international aid, but the future of human independence itself.